"Why do you have a photo of me?" asked a Hell's Angels. Then poor girl revealed the shocking truth. The late afternoon sun cast long, distorted shadows across the cracked pavement of Elm Street, a seemingly unremarkable stretch of suburban asphalt that connected the quiet residential area to the bustling main thoroughfare. A gentle breeze, carrying the faint scent of freshly cut grass and distant exhaust fumes, rustled the leaves of ancient oak trees lining the sidewalk, creating a soft, whispering symphony that usually lulled the neighborhood into a sense of peaceful complacency. For 9-year-old Sarah Miller, this particular Tuesday was supposed to be like any other. School had just let out, and she was on her way home, her worn pink backpack slung casually over one shoulder, its contents a chaotic mix of textbooks, a half-eaten apple, and a handful of colorful marbles. Her mind, as was typical for a child her age, was preoccupied with the latest playground gossip and the urgent need to finish her homework before her mother returned from her shift at the diner. Sarah was a small girl, even for her age, with a wiry frame and a perpetually curious expression that made her large, hazel eyes seem to absorb every detail of the world around her. Her sandy blonde hair, usually pulled back in a messy ponytail, had escaped its confines and now framed a face dusted with a few freckles. She was humming a tuneless melody, kicking at loose pebbles as she walked, completely oblivious to the looming presence that would irrevocably alter the course of her young life. As she turned the corner onto Maple Avenue, a street normally devoid of heavy traffic, the low, guttural rumble of a powerful engine vibrated through the ground, making her pause. It wasn't the sound of a typical car. This was deeper, more resonant, a sound that spoke of raw power and unbridled force. Her head instinctively tilted upwards, her eyes scanning the street ahead. Parked directly in front of Mrs. Henderson's meticulously maintained rose garden, a place Sarah usually admired for its vibrant blooms, was a motorcycle. It was a beast of a machine, a customized Harley-Davidson, gleaming chrome catching the dying sunlight, its dark paint job reflecting the ominous clouds gathering on the horizon. And then she saw him. Leaning against the side of the motorcycle, his arms crossed over a broad chest, was a man who seemed to embody everything intimidating. He was a mountain of a man, easily 6 feet 4 inches tall, with a physique that spoke of years of hard living and even harder physical labor. His leather vest, the kind that seemed to absorb all light, was adorned with an array of patches, the most prominent of which was the infamous death head emblem of the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club, starkly embroidered on the back. His head was shaved bald, revealing a network of scars that crisscrossed his scalp, almost like a macabre roadmap of past encounters. A thick, dark beard framed a jawline that looked as if it could crack walnuts, and his eyes, partially obscured by dark sunglasses, seemed to emit a cold, unwavering intensity that made the hairs on Sarah's arms stand on end. He was wearing heavy, worn-out jeans and thick leather boots that looked like they could crush concrete. This was Knuckles. Everyone in town knew of Knuckles, or at least knew of his reputation. He was a legend, a figure of both fear and grudging respect, a permanent fixture in the local lore, always seen with his crew, but rarely alone. Sarah had only ever seen him from a distance, usually roaring past in a convoy of motorcycles, a blur of leather and chrome. To see him standing there, alone, on her street, was unsettling. She tried to avert her gaze, to pretend she hadn't noticed him, hoping he would simply remain a static, intimidating presence as she hurried past. But then, his head slowly turned. The dark sunglasses, for a fleeting moment, seemed to lock onto her small form. A shiver, cold and sharp, ran down Sarah's spine. She quickened her pace, her heart beginning to thump an anxious rhythm against her ribs. She clutched her backpack strap tighter, her knuckles white. Just as she was about to pass him, to slip by unnoticed, a deep, gravelly voice, like rocks tumbling down a mountain, stopped her dead in her tracks. "Hey, kid!" The two words hung in the air, heavy and laden with an unspoken command. Sarah froze, every nerve ending in her body screaming for her to run, to sprint away as fast as her legs could carry her. But something in his tone, a mixture of casual authority and underlying menace, rooted her to the spot. Slowly, reluctantly, she turned her head, her hazel eyes wide with a mixture of fear and childlike apprehension. She looked up at him, her neck craning to meet his gaze, even with the sunglasses obscuring his eyes. Knuckles pushed himself off his motorcycle, his movements surprisingly fluid for such a large man. He took a single, deliberate step towards her, and the ground seemed to vibrate with his presence. The scent of leather, stale tobacco, and something vaguely metallic wafted towards her. He reached into the inner pocket of his vest, his movements slow and deliberate, making Sarah's breath catch in her throat. She braced herself, unsure of what to expect. A knife? A warning? Her mind, racing a mile a minute, struggled to comprehend the situation. Instead, he pulled out a small, rectangular object. It was a photograph, slightly creased at the corners, its surface glossy even in the fading light. He held it between his thumb and forefinger, his gaze now fixed on her, unwavering. The sunglasses remained on, but Sarah could feel the intensity of his stare, boring into her. Then, he spoke again, his voice lower this time, a dangerous edge creeping into its depths. "Why do you have a photo of me?" The question hit Sarah like a physical blow. Her mouth went dry. Her mind, which moments ago had been a whirlwind of playground antics and homework, suddenly went blank. She stared at the photograph in his hand, then back at his impassive, scarred face. The image on the photo was undeniably him, Knuckles, standing next to his motorcycle, a pose he often struck, but there was something else about it. It wasn't a casual snapshot. It looked deliberate. And more importantly, it was a photo of him. I don't. Sarah stammered, her voice barely a whisper, her throat tight with fear. Her eyes darted around, searching for an escape, for a friendly face, for anyone to intervene. But the street was empty, the houses silent, their windows reflecting the orange glow of the sunset like unblinking eyes. She was utterly alone with this formidable man. Knuckles took another step, closing the distance between them. He was so close now that Sarah could see the faint stubble on his jawline and the intricate tattoos that snaked up his forearms from under his short-sleeved t-shirt. He extended the photograph towards her, not offering it, but presenting it as evidence, an undeniable accusation. This is a photo of me. I want to know why you have it." Sarah's gaze finally landed on the image. It was a close-up, a headshot of Knuckles, taken in what looked like a dimly lit room, perhaps a bar or a garage. He wasn't smiling. His expression was grim, almost menacing. But what truly sent a jolt of ice through Sarah was the background. Behind him, partially obscured by shadow, was a familiar, distinctive mark on a wall, a small, faded star-shaped sticker, one that Sarah recognized instantly. It was the same sticker that adorned the wall in her own bedroom, a relic from a childhood art project. But how could it be? Her mind reeled, trying to connect the dots, trying to make sense of the impossible. She didn't have a photo of Knuckles. She had never taken a photo of Knuckles. She had never been anywhere near him. The very idea was ludicrous, terrifying. Yet, he held the proof right there, an undeniable image that seemed to implicate her. I don't know that photo," she managed to squeak out, her voice trembling. "I've never seen it before. I don't have a photo of you." The denial, though genuine, sounded weak and unconvincing even to her own ears. Knuckles' expression remained unreadable behind the sunglasses, but Sarah could feel his patience wearing thin. A muscle twitched in his jaw. "Don't lie to me, kid. This photo was found. With your name on the back. And it was found in a place where it shouldn't have been." His voice dropped to a low growl, the casual menace now more pronounced. "So, I'm asking you one more time. Why do you have a photo of me?" Sarah's eyes widened further, her breath catching in her throat. Her name? On the back? Found in a place where it shouldn't have been. The pieces of information were disjointed, nonsensical, yet terrifyingly real. A sudden, overwhelming wave of nausea washed over her. It wasn't just fear of Knuckles anymore. It was a deeper, more profound dread, a cold realization that something was terribly, terribly wrong. This wasn't a simple misunderstanding. This was something far more sinister, something that touched upon a secret she had been trying to bury, a truth too horrifying for her young mind to fully process. A memory, hazy and fragmented, began to surface from the depths of her consciousness. A dark room. Whispers. The metallic tang of something unpleasant in the air. A flash of light. She squeezed her eyes shut for a moment, trying to push it back, to deny its existence. But Knuckles' imposing figure, his unyielding stare, and the undeniable photograph in his hand forced the memory to the forefront. I didn't take it, she whispered, the words barely audible. But I know where it came from. Knuckles leaned in closer, his shadow engulfing her small form. And where, exactly, did it come from, Sarah? His use of her name, spoken with such a chilling calm, sent another jolt of terror through her. He knew her name. He knew more than she thought. Sarah swallowed hard, her throat still dry. The air seemed to thicken around them, heavy with unspoken threats and a growing sense of dread. The sun had dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of deep purple and fiery orange, but casting the street into an eerie twilight. The silence that followed Knuckles' question was deafening, punctuated only by the distant chirping of crickets beginning their nightly chorus. She looked up at him again, her small hand instinctively moving to clutch the worn-out teddy bear keychain hanging from her backpack zipper, a small source of comfort in a rapidly terrifying situation. Her mind raced, desperately trying to find the right words, the words that would explain everything without making things worse, without revealing the full, horrifying scope of what she knew. But how could a 9-year-old explain something so complex, so dark? The image of the star-shaped sticker on the wall behind Knuckles and the photo swam before her eyes again, clearer this time. And with it, a torrent of other, more disturbing images, a familiar, yet somehow distorted, room, hushed voices that weren't her mother's, the clinking of bottles, a strange, sweet, sickening smell that sometimes permeated their house late at night. She had tried to ignore these things, to pretend they weren't happening, to bury them deep beneath the surface of her innocent world. But now, with Knuckles standing before her, demanding answers, the carefully constructed facade of her normal life was crumbling. Her lips trembled. She wanted to run, to scream for her mother, to disappear. But she knew, with a certainty that chilled her to the bone, that running wouldn't solve anything. Knuckles wouldn't let her go. He wanted answers, and the look in his eyes told her he wouldn't leave until he got them. It wasn't me who took it, Sarah finally managed to say, her voice cracking with emotion. A single tear escaped her eye, tracing a path down her freckled cheek. But I saw it. I saw him take it. Knuckles remained silent, his posture rigid, his gaze unyielding. He waited, his patience a thin veneer over a simmering anger. He didn't prompt her, didn't interrupt. He simply stood there, a formidable statue of menace, allowing the weight of his presence to press down on her, forcing the truth out. It was Mr. Henderson, Sarah confessed, the name a barely audible whisper, laden with a child's terror. Her eyes darted towards the house directly behind Knuckles, the meticulously maintained rose garden now a blur of color in her peripheral vision. He was in our house. In the basement. And he had that photo. And he was talking to someone else. About you. The revelation hung in the air, a shocking, unexpected twist. Mr. Henderson. The quiet, unassuming neighbor who prided himself on his prize-winning roses. The man who always offered Sarah a friendly wave and a polite smile. The man who lived directly across the street. The name, spoken by a terrified 9-year-old, introduced a layer of complexity and horror that transcended a simple confrontation on a suburban street. Knuckles' head tilted slightly, his posture tensing almost imperceptibly. The name, Mr. Henderson, seemed to resonate with an unexpected significance, a flicker of something akin to surprise, or perhaps recognition, passing through his otherwise stoic demeanor. The grip on the photograph in his hand tightened. The game, it seemed, had just changed dramatically. Knuckles' head tilted slightly, his posture tensing almost imperceptibly. The name, Mr. Henderson, seemed to resonate with an unexpected significance, a flicker of something akin to surprise, or perhaps recognition, passing through his otherwise stoic demeanor. The grip on the photograph in his hand tightened. The game, it seemed, had just changed dramatically. Mr. Henderson, Knuckles repeated, his voice devoid of its earlier growl, now a low, flat statement that somehow felt even more dangerous. He didn't look at the house across the street, his gaze remaining fixed on Sarah, as if seeking confirmation that this wasn't some child's wild fabrication. "Tell me everything, kid. What did you see? What did you hear?" Sarah flinched at the intensity in his tone, but the directness of the question, the sudden pivot from accusation to genuine inquiry, seemed to unlock a dam within her. The fear was still a suffocating blanket, but beneath it, a desperate need to explain, to make him understand, fought its way to the surface. Her small chest heaved with ragged breaths. It was a few nights ago," she started, her voice still trembling but gaining a fragile strength. "Mom was working late. I was supposed to be asleep, but I heard noises. From the basement." She gestured vaguely towards her own house, a seemingly innocuous suburban dwelling now imbued with a chilling secret. I went downstairs, quietly. The light was on, and the door was open a crack. I saw him. Mr. Henderson. He was with another man. I didn't know him. He had a beard, like yours, but not as big." Knuckles' jaw remained set, but his eyes, behind the dark lenses, seemed to narrow. "Another man. That was a crucial detail. They were in our basement," Sarah continued, her words tumbling out faster now, as if she feared she might lose the courage to speak if she paused. "By the old workbench. And there was a lot of stuff. Boxes. And a big, dark table. And that smell. That really bad, sweet smell. Like when Mom cleans the oven, but different. Worse." Her nose wrinkled instinctively at the memory. "And Mr. Henderson, he had that picture. Your picture. He was holding it up, and the other man was looking at it. And then Mr. Henderson pointed to the star on the wall behind you in the photo. The one like mine." She paused, her small finger tracing the air where the sticker would be. "He said, 'This is our proof.' She's too young to remember, but the mark is undeniable. And the other man, he just nodded. And then they started talking about the package and the drop and the big one coming soon." The words hung in the air, each one a tiny, terrifying piece of a puzzle Knuckles hadn't even known existed until moments ago. The package, the drop, the big one. These weren't terms used in polite conversation about rose gardens. And the star-shaped sticker, a detail Sarah had just confirmed, provided the chilling connection to her house, to her bedroom. The photograph wasn't just of him, it was evidence, a marker, a signpost. Knuckles' mind, a labyrinth of street smarts, loyalty, and a ruthless understanding of the underworld, began to churn. Mr. Henderson, the quiet neighbor. The basement. A second man. A photograph of him, used as proof, connected to a child's innocent sticker. And the talk of packages and drops. It all coalesced into a single, ugly word, drugs. Or something equally illicit and dangerous. And the implication that Sarah, or rather her house, was somehow central to it, perhaps unknowingly. She's too young to remember. Remember what? His gaze swept from Sarah's trembling face to her house, then across the street to Mr. Henderson's perfectly manicured lawn and the neat, unassuming facade of his home. The contrast between the idyllic suburban setting and the dark words Sarah had just uttered was jarring. This wasn't just a simple case of a neighbor having a photo. This was a setup. A frame. Or worse, an active operation, with his image, and implicitly his club's reputation, being used as leverage or a threat. The basement, Knuckles said, his voice low, almost a growl again. Your basement. Is it a normal basement? Sarah shook her head vigorously, her eyes wide. No. It's different now. There are always boxes. And sometimes, at night, I hear a generator. And the smell gets really strong. Mom says it's just Mr. Henderson helping her with some storage, but it doesn't feel like storage. And sometimes, when Mom is asleep, I hear the door open and close, and I see lights from the basement windows, even when Mom locked it. Her voice dropped to a barely audible whisper. I think Mr. Henderson has a key. A key. To her house. To her basement. The implication was clear. Mr. Henderson wasn't just helping her mother. He was using their property, likely without her mother's full knowledge, for something clandestine. That star-shaped sticker reference in the photo, "She's too young to remember," began to take on a terrifying new dimension. Was Sarah's house being used because of some past connection, some forgotten history involving Knuckles? Or was it simply a convenient, unsuspecting location for their illicit activities, with the photo and the sticker acting as a bizarre, taunting signature? Knuckles' hand, still gripping the photograph, slowly lowered. His internal debate was fierce. His first instinct was always direct action, confrontation. March across the street, kick down Henderson's door, and get answers. But Sarah's presence, her vulnerable age, and the sheer audacity of the situation gave him pause. If Henderson was involved in the big one, he wouldn't be alone. And if he was using Sarah's house, her mother could be in danger, or worse, already compromised. He looked at Sarah again, really looked at her. Her small frame, her tear-streaked face, the innocent terror in her eyes. She was a child caught in a web of adult depravity, an unwitting witness to something far beyond her comprehension. He couldn't just leave her here. She was a liability, yes, but also a potential victim, and an invaluable source of information. "All right, kid," Knuckles said, his voice softer than she had heard it before, though still rough around the edges. "This is important. You need to listen to me very carefully. You told me this. Now, you don't tell anyone else. Not your mom. Not your friends. Nobody. Do you understand?" Sarah nodded frantically, her eyes still wide, but a flicker of understanding, or perhaps just obedience, in their depths. "Good," he continued, his gaze sweeping the now darkening street. The long shadows had merged into a uniform gloom. "Right now, you're coming with me. We're not going to your house. You can't go to your house. It's not safe." Sarah's breath hitched. But my mom will be home soon. She'll worry." "Your mom will be fine for now," Knuckles stated, his voice firm, leaving no room for argument. He knew he was taking a risk, potentially kidnapping a child in broad daylight, or rather, twilight, but the alternative was leaving her in a house that was clearly compromised, a pawn in a game she didn't even know she was playing. He couldn't risk Henderson or his associate discovering she had seen them, had heard their plans. He reached into another pocket of his vest, pulling out a burner phone, a cheap, nondescript device he used only for secure communications. He punched in a number, his thumb moving with surprising dexterity. He held it to his ear, his eyes never leaving Sarah, scanning the street for any sign of movement, any watchful eyes. "Bear," he barked into the phone when it connected. "I need a discreet pickup. My location. And I need a safe house prepped. ASAP. No questions, just move. And tell the others to stand down for now. No moves on Henderson until I give the word. This is bigger than we thought. And bring a change of clothes for a kid. 9 years old. Girl." He listened for a moment, then snapped, "Just do it. I'll explain later. And tell Bones to start digging on at Mr. Henderson on Elm Street. Quietly." He snapped the phone shut, tucked it away, and turned back to Sarah. "Come on," he ordered, his hand gesturing towards the motorcycle. "You're riding with me." Sarah stared at the formidable machine, then back at Knuckles, her face a mask of conflicting emotions. Fear, yes, but also a sliver of something else, a dawning realization that this terrifying man, for all his menace, was now her only protector. She had never been on a motorcycle, let alone with a Hell's Angel. But I don't have a helmet," she whispered, a childish concern surfacing amidst the chaos. Knuckles let out a low grunt, almost a chuckle, a sound so unexpected it startled Sarah. "Don't worry about that, kid. We'll find one. Just hold on tight." He walked to the other side of the motorcycle, swinging his leg over the seat with practiced ease. He patted the passenger seat behind him. "Get on." Sarah hesitated for only a second, then, taking a deep breath, she walked around the gleaming Harley. The seat was high. She struggled to climb up, her small legs not quite reaching the foot pegs. Knuckles, without a word, reached down, his massive hand surprisingly gentle as he helped her up, settling her carefully behind him. He then reached under his seat, pulling out a spare, slightly dusty half-helmet. It was far too big for her, but it was something. He adjusted the strap as best he could, grimacing at the poor fit. "Hold on to my vest," he instructed, his voice muffled by his own helmet which he now donned. "And don't let go. Not for anything." Sarah clutched the back of his leather vest, her small fingers barely able to grasp the thick material. The leather was surprisingly soft, worn smooth in places. She could feel the powerful muscles beneath. With a low rumble that vibrated through her entire body, Knuckles started the engine. The sound was deafening, a primal roar that filled the street, a stark contrast to the quiet suburban evening. He glanced over his shoulder, a brief, unreadable look in his eyes, then twisted the throttle. The motorcycle surged forward, a sudden burst of power that made Sarah gasp and instinctively tighten her grip. The wind immediately whipped past her face, cold and exhilarating, despite the fear still churning in her stomach. Elm Street, which had minutes ago felt like a familiar, safe path home, now receded rapidly behind them, a place of shadows and secrets. The meticulously maintained rose garden blurred into a smear of color. Mr. Henderson's house, silent and dark, seemed to watch their departure with an unseen gaze. Knuckles navigated the winding suburban streets with a practiced hand, his movements fluid and confident. He wasn't speeding recklessly, but there was an undeniable urgency in his posture, a focused determination. Sarah pressed herself against his broad back, the rhythmic thrum of the engine a strange, comforting vibration against her small body. She watched the familiar houses pass by, each one a silent sentinel to the unraveling of her seemingly normal life. The sun had fully set now, and the streetlights flickered on, casting pools of yellow light that danced across the road. Her mind, despite the terrifying events, began to process the implications. Mr. Henderson. The man who always waved. The man who lived across the street. He was involved in something dark, something that had drawn Knuckles, a Hell's Angel, into her orbit. And her house, her very own basement, was a part of it. That star-shaped sticker, in the photo, the one that matched her bedroom wall, was a chilling reminder that this wasn't random. Her small, innocent life had intersected with a dangerous world, and she was now firmly entangled. Knuckles, meanwhile, was a storm of calculated fury. The image of the death head on his back was not just a patch, it was a symbol, a declaration. And someone, Mr. Henderson, was using his image, his club's reputation, for their own nefarious ends, potentially framing him or implicating him in a scheme. She's too young to remember, but the mark is undeniable. What mark? What was it that Sarah was too young to remember? This wasn't just about a photo. This was about a history, a connection he hadn't foreseen, a ghost from the past perhaps, or a deliberate attempt to draw him into something. The casual mention of the big one suggested a significant operation, one that could have far-reaching consequences for his club if their name was connected to it. He pushed the motorcycle onto the main thoroughfare, the roar of the engine blending with the evening traffic. He had to think, to plan. Bear would be setting up the safe house. Bones would be digging for information on Henderson. But he needed more than just a name. He needed to understand the full scope of this operation, who else was involved, and most importantly, why his image and Sarah's house were being used. The girl was a key, a living piece of evidence. And he, Knuckles, was now her unlikely guardian, whether he liked it or not. The responsibility, heavy and unexpected, settled on his broad shoulders. He felt a grim satisfaction that Henderson had made a grave mistake by involving him, by using his image. There would be consequences, severe ones. But first, he had to ensure Sarah's safety and unravel the tangled web of deceit that had ensnared her. He glanced down at the small hands clutching his vest. This was far from over. This was only the beginning. The motorcycle roared down the main thoroughfare, carrying Sarah away from the familiar, yet suddenly menacing, Elm Street. She clung to Knuckles' vest, the wind whipping at her hair, the rhythmic thrum of the engine a constant, powerful presence beneath her. Her mind, a whirlwind of fear and confusion, slowly began to grasp the gravity of her situation. This wasn't just a scary man, this was a protector, pulling her into a world she never knew existed. Knuckles drove with a purpose, navigating through the evening traffic with a calm authority that belied the storm brewing within him. His club's safe house was a nondescript building on the outskirts of town, blending seamlessly with the industrial landscape. As they pulled up, a heavy garage door rumbled open, revealing a dimly lit interior. Another Hell's Angel, a burly man with a kind face and a neatly trimmed beard, stepped forward. This was Bear. Knuckles, what the hell? Bear's eyes widened as he saw Sarah, small and terrified, clutching Knuckles' back. Later, Bear, Knuckles grunted, cutting the engine. The sudden silence was almost deafening. Get her inside. She needs food, a shower, and something that isn't soaked in fear. He dismounted, then gently helped Sarah down. Bear, surprisingly, knelt to Sarah's level. Hey there, little one, he said, his voice softer than she'd expected. My name's Bear. You're safe here. He offered a large, calloused hand, which Sarah hesitantly took. She looked up at Knuckles, who simply nodded, a silent reassurance. It was the first time she felt a flicker of calm since he'd stopped her. Inside, the safe house was surprisingly clean and well-maintained, a stark contrast to the biker stereotype. Bear led Sarah to a small, private room, stocked with fresh clothes, toiletries, and even a few children's books. While Bear settled Sarah, Knuckles moved to the command center, a room filled with monitors, maps, and communication equipment. Bones, report, Knuckles demanded into a secure line. Got a preliminary on Henderson, Knuckles, Bones' voice crackled through the speaker. Name's Robert Henderson. Lives on Elm, as you know. Clean record, on paper. But dig a little deeper, and he's got ties. Used to run with a small-time crew called the Elm Street Syndicate about 15 years back. Mostly low-level drug distribution and petty extortion. They got busted up, most of them went to jail. Henderson supposedly went straight. Supposedly, Knuckles scoffed. And the photo? The mark? That's where it gets interesting, Bones continued. The Elm Street Syndicate had a beef with us, back in the day. A territory dispute. We shut them down hard. Their leader, a guy named Silas "Snake" Jenkins, swore revenge. He's been out of stir for about 6 months. A cold knot tightened in Knuckles' stomach. Snake. He's the other man. Likely, Bones confirmed. Here's the kicker, Snake had a unique way of marking his territory. He'd leave a specific symbol. A 5-pointed star, etched or painted, at the site of his operations. It was his calling card, his signature. And he always took a photo of the main players or targets at the location, for proof or insurance. Knuckles' mind raced, connecting the dots. The star sticker in Sarah's bedroom, matching the one in the photo. She's too young to remember, but the mark is undeniable. It wasn't about Sarah remembering, it was about the location, her house, being marked by Snake years ago, and now being reactivated. But why Sarah's house? Henderson's house is across from Sarah's, Knuckles mused aloud. Proximity. And Sarah's mother, she's a single mom, works late. Easy target. They're using her basement. Bingo, Bones said. My intel suggests Henderson and Snake are reactivating the syndicate, aiming for a major score. They're using Sarah's basement to cook a new, highly potent batch of crystal meth. The big 1 foot is a massive distribution deal they're finalizing, aimed at flooding the market. The photo of you, Knuckles, with the star in the background, is a deliberate taunt. It's meant to implicate you, or at least draw you into their mess, making it look like you're either protecting them or involved. A way to muddy the waters and intimidate potential rivals. Or to make it look like we're behind the operation if it goes south, Knuckles growled, the full extent of the frame-up dawning on him. They want to drag our name through the mud, shift blame, and maybe even ignite a turf war. Exactly, Bones replied. They're using your reputation as a shield and a weapon. Henderson probably had a key to her house from helping her mother with storage, then gradually took over the basement for the lab. The generator Sarah heard. Powering the lab. The smell. The meth cook. Knuckles slammed his fist on the table. They put a child and her innocent mother in the middle of a meth lab. And used my image to do it. His voice was low, laced with a terrifying calm. Bear, get in here. Bear entered, having ensured Sarah was settled. What's the plan, Knuckles? We move tonight, Knuckles stated, his eyes hard. Henderson and Snake are in Sarah's basement, cooking poison. They're about to make the big one to drop. We shut them down, permanently. But clean. No collateral damage. Sarah's mother needs to be protected, and that house needs to be secured. And the girl? Bear asked, glancing towards Sarah's room. She stays here, Knuckles said. She's safe with you. Nobody goes near her. This is our problem now, not hers. Knuckles assembled a small, elite team. They moved silently, a convoy of dark motorcycles, their engines muffled, through the late-night suburban streets. Elm Street was quiet, bathed in the soft glow of streetlights. Henderson's house across the street was dark, but Sarah's house had a faint, almost imperceptible glow from the basement windows, and the sickly sweet chemical smell was now distinct in the cool night air. They approached Sarah's house from the rear, avoiding the front. Knuckles, a master of stealth despite his size, led the way. He picked the lock on the back door with practiced ease, slipping inside. The house was silent. Sarah's mother was likely asleep, oblivious to the danger lurking beneath her feet. He signaled his team towards the basement door. As they descended the creaking wooden stairs, the chemical smell intensified, stinging their nostrils. The basement was a crude but functional meth lab. Glassware bubbled, hoses snaked across the floor, and a generator hummed in the corner. Henderson, his face pale and sweaty, was hunched over a workbench, meticulously packaging small bags of a crystalline substance. Across from him, Snake Jenkins, his face gaunt and scarred, was on a burner phone, his voice a low, urgent murmur. The drop is set for dawn, Snake was saying. The money will be wired by noon. This is it, Henderson. The big one. Knuckles kicked open the basement door, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the confined space. It's over, Snake. Both men froze, their eyes widening in shock and fear as they saw Knuckles and his crew. Henderson dropped the baggie he was holding. Snake, faster, lunged for a pistol tucked into his waistband. But Bear was quicker, disarming him with a swift, brutal efficiency that left Snake gasping on the floor, his arm twisted at an unnatural angle. Knuckles stepped forward, his gaze fixed on Henderson. You used a child's home. You put poison in her basement. And you tried to frame me. His voice was a low growl, filled with a chilling menace. That was your last mistake. Henderson stammered, his face ashen. I didn't mean to, Knuckles. Snake, he forced me. He knew about my past, he threatened my family. Excuses, Knuckles spat, unimpressed. You had a choice. You chose to endanger an innocent family. And you chose to cross me. While Knuckles dealt with Henderson and Snake, the rest of the crew systematically dismantled the meth lab, documenting everything with photos and video. They secured all the evidence, carefully bagging the drugs, the equipment, and the burner phones. They found the original photo of Knuckles, along with several others, all with the distinctive star symbol in the background, proof of Snake's elaborate frame-up. By the time dawn broke, the basement was clear, the air purifier running to dissipate the remaining chemical fumes. Henderson and Snake, gagged and bound, were loaded into a van, destined for a remote, secure location where they would face the club's own brand of justice, and then be handed over to the authorities with an ironclad case. Knuckles then went upstairs. Sarah's mother, startled awake by the commotion, was in the living room, confused and terrified. Knuckles, for the first time, removed his sunglasses, revealing eyes that were surprisingly weary but resolute. "Ma'am," he began, his voice surprisingly gentle. "My name is Knuckles. Your daughter, Sarah, is safe. She's with my people. But there's something you need to know about your house, and about your neighbor, Mr. Henderson. He explained everything, carefully, omitting the more brutal details, focusing on the facts: Henderson's illicit activities, the meth lab in her basement, Snake Jenkins' involvement, and the deliberate attempt to frame Knuckles and his club. He showed her the evidence, the bagged drugs, the photos from the lab, and the original photo of him with the star sticker. Sarah's mother listened, her face draining of color, a mixture of shock, betrayal, and dawning horror. Tears welled in her eyes as she realized the true extent of the danger she and her daughter had been in. Mr. Henderson, he seemed so nice, she whispered, her voice trembling. He said he was just storing some old boxes for a friend. He even had a key, said it was for emergencies. He used your trust, ma'am, Knuckles said gravely. And he put your daughter in unimaginable danger. But it's over now. Henderson and his partner have been apprehended. The lab is dismantled. Your house is safe. He then made her an offer. My club will ensure your safety. We can help you relocate, if you wish. Or we can secure this house, make sure nobody ever bothers you again. And we will make sure you have all the resources you need to recover from this. It wasn't charity, it was a matter of protecting his own name, and a newfound sense of responsibility for the child who had unwittingly helped him unravel a dangerous plot. Sarah's mother, still reeling, could only nod. Thank you, she managed, her voice choked with emotion. Thank you for saving my daughter. Later that morning, Knuckles brought Sarah back to her home. She ran into her mother's arms, a torrent of tears and relief washing over both of them. Knuckles watched from a distance, a silent sentinel. The house, once a place of hidden dread, now felt lighter, cleaner. He knelt down to Sarah's level. You were very brave, kid, he said, a rare, almost imperceptible softening in his gruff voice. You told the truth, and that saved a lot of people. Sarah looked up at him, her hazel eyes still wide, but now filled with a different kind of understanding. Will Mr. Henderson go away? Yes, Sarah, Knuckles confirmed. He's gone. And he won't be coming back. Nobody will bother you or your mom ever again. He stood up, his gaze sweeping over the quiet street, the meticulously maintained rose garden across the way now feeling empty, devoid of its former sinister undertones. His mission was complete. The Elm Street Syndicate was dead. His name was cleared, his club's reputation protected. The mark of Silas "Snake" Jenkins was erased, and the big one had been successfully averted. As he walked back to his motorcycle, Sarah called out, Knuckles. He turned. Thank you, she said, a small, genuine smile gracing her face. Knuckles simply nodded, a faint, almost imperceptible twitch at the corner of his lips. He mounted his Harley-Davidson, the engine roaring to life, a familiar, powerful sound that now carried a different meaning. He glanced one last time at Sarah and her mother, standing together, a picture of resilience and newfound safety. He knew his world would always be one of shadows and danger, but for a brief moment, a 9-year-old girl had reminded him of the light worth fighting for. With a final, resonant rumble, he rode away, leaving Elm Street to the gentle morning sun, its secrets finally laid bare, and its future, for Sarah and her mother, now safe and clear. This chapter was closed, but the world, as Knuckles knew, always had another story waiting just around the corner.